IVM.
Welcome to episode 74 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I am your host for this week, Ashwin, joining you from Cincinnati in the US. And with me this week is Varun, recording bright and early on a weekday morning. So Varun, thanks for taking the time to join. I know when we record midweek, it can get tough for you, or either me or you in terms of time zone. But how are you feeling this week?
I'm good, man. I was looking forward to recording the podcast. And like I was saying, I think we're getting old because it's easier for me to wake up early and record rather than do it at midnight.
Yeah, see, you and I have the opposite problem when it comes to watching cricket. For any of our listeners in North America, they'll know that waking up early is par for the course. 6:30 a.m. Saturday, Sunday IPL games. Most games played in Asia for us are fairly early, but for you, they tend to go pretty late into the night. So we have slightly different sleep schedules. Guys, for anybody who's a first-time listener, this show is usually hosted by all three of us, Varun, myself, and then DJ, who is absent this week because he is traveling the United States. So he's near me, but not in the same city. And he'll be actually at the women's final of the US Open tennis that's happening this weekend. So hopefully he'll live tweet or share some interesting clips on our Instagram from that day. So interesting week in the world of cricket. India has just wrapped up our series against the West Indies. So we're going to talk about that first. And then in the second half of the show, we'll talk a little bit about the Ashes coming up, the World Test Championship points, and then some rumor mills from the world of the IPL, because even though it's 7 months away still, we can't help but start talking about the IPL. So Varun, let us start with the India-West Indies series that just happened. 3-0 in the T20s, 2-0 in the ODIs, and that's because one was rained out, and 2-0 in the test matches. Feeling pretty good? Is that what you expected, or is it a nice run after the World Cup?
I think it was what we expected, at least for me. I think the ODI and T20 I definitely did. But, as I was chatting with some friends, I know in tests we've not had the best record in West Indies. You kind of have some nightmares, and DJ is the one who remembers all the stats, but I remember Franklin Rose had got us all out for 120 in one particular innings in West Indies, and batting has always been a challenge. So I was a little bit nervous about the test, but it's been a complete domination, man. The first test we won by 318 runs, second test by 257 runs, and I think Darren Ganga actually had a quote that I read on Cricket Info that said, Kohli is basically grooming the next generation for world domination in cricket.
Wow, that's pretty well said. That's interesting, right? Like we've talked about India or Australia's world domination over the last kind of decade and a half prior to the last couple of years. But that's interesting. You somehow never thought you'd be saying that about India, but pretty exciting stuff. Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about our record in the West Indies, not to go on a tangent, but I don't know how well you remember this, but in 1997 in the summer, we were in Bombay at the time, and that's when the infamous test match where India was chasing 120 and Sidhu and Lakshman walk out to open and got out for 81 all out. So I have a really bad memory of childhood. Yeah.
I remember seeing 120 on the screen for a long time, and now that you mention it, that was the target.
It was 81 all out. And I will say I have a horrible memory, but for some reason that is one of those test matches, I would have been like 9 years old, that has stayed etched in my mind because it just felt like such a prime opportunity to win a test match, and then to go show up there and get 81 all out was pretty disappointing. But let's talk greener pastures. The second test just wrapped up, as I mentioned, 2-0 in the test series. We talked at length about the first test. The reason this episode is releasing a little bit later than normal is because we were waiting for the second test to end. So after winning the first test by 318, India won the second test by 257 runs. Varun, do you want to quickly kind of summarize your highlights from that, and then we'll dig deeper into sort of the Indian team's performance?
Yeah, sure. So let me just walk through the four innings that actually happened. So India made 416 in the first innings. They got all out, but the standout performance there was really Vihari. 111, his maiden test century. And the other guy I want to talk about from the batting perspective, Ashwin, and we'll get into this later, is Ishant Sharma. He hit 57, and it was great because Vihari actually came out and, when he was in his 80s, he kind of lost steam a little bit. And Harsha Bhogle and all were tweeting the same thing, that Vihari just seems to have lost a little bit of steam. He just needs to bat it out for a while. He'll get it back and he can cross the century. And Vihari actually came out and said that Ishant Sharma looked like the senior batsman out there, and he took a lot of the pressure off. So I thought that was absolutely fantastic. West Indies then came out and got 117 all out. An absolute masterclass from Jasprit Bumrah. 6 wickets, 3 maidens for 27 runs in just 12 overs. Absolutely fantastic. I don't think I've seen such a good bowling performance in a while. India then, for some reason, decided to not enforce the follow-on And I think it's partly because I think the bowlers were looking a little bit tired. You probably just wanted to have them fresh. There was enough time out there. But I was reading that day 4 and 5, there was a little bit of risk of rain. So it was a little bit of a surprising decision for me. And India actually didn't do that well. Kemar Roach kind of came out and blew us away. We got 168 for 4. We declared. Again, Vihari was the guy who hit a half century and kind of steered us to that particular score. And I mean, to be honest, in Test cricket, we know despite the last Ashes match, a target of 468 for West Indies in the 4th innings just proved to be too much. I do want to say I think they did pretty well. They got to 210. They did get all out. But I think overall, very convincing win for India by 257 runs.
Yeah, thank you. That's a fantastic summary. Let's kind of dig a little bit into each of them, more sort of from the lens of analyzing the player's performance. And I know it was only 2 tests, but let's go through, analyze the player's performance and chat it with the lens of, we have a 3-test series at home in India coming up. How do you think each of these players fits into the team setup for a home series against arguably a more formidable opposition like South Africa? So let's start with our openers, Rahul and Agarwal. Rahul had sort of a little bit of a forgettable series. He made just over 100 runs in his 4 innings. Mayank also just made about 80 runs in the 4 innings he played, but in the second test, he managed to get a 55. So your thoughts, Varun, if you're the selector right now, how are you feeling about the choice on the openers at the moment?
So I think I'm very happy with Mayank Agarwal. He had come in last year in Australia in a tough situation. He's done well, even against West Indies. I mean, in the first innings, he scored a 50. So I'm feeling very positive about Mayank Agarwal, and he looks good, right, according to me. KL Rahul, on the other hand, I'm not sure. I feel like this guy's just kind of lost his way a little bit. There's a stat I'm going to read, which I saw on Twitter, which said since the start of 2018, Rahul has averaged 22 across 15 test matches. He scored only 100 against England at the Oval and 150 against Afghanistan at Bangalore. His career average was 44 before the start of 2018. It's now dropped to just under 30, under 35. So it's about 34. So Rahul, I think, is that classic case of not being able to adapt to the 3 different formats. I think he's been asked to open. He's asked to come at 4. His IPL record is great, but his international ODI and T20 record is not that fantastic. I think it's impacting his tests. So if I was Rahul, I would be a little worried. I think there are guys like Shaw. I don't know if Shubman Gill opens, but these guys are waiting in the wings, right? So I personally would be a little bit worried if I was KL Rahul.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So let me just ask one follow-up question. When we talk about Rishabh Pant, DJ has asked on this show, have we given him too long a leash? Is he running out of runway? And we said unequivocally, no, it's still way too early. And that's from a limited over standpoint. Rahul has now played 36 test matches. So having played 36 test matches, is this kind of the time the selectors really say, hey, you need to, we're going to give you a couple more matches, and if you don't find form, this is it? Or, as we've kind of said in the past when we've talked about Rahul, we back him, and the chopping and changing can hurt, and do we just need to give him an extended run and let him play 3 matches against South Africa, a couple tests against Bangladesh to find form back in India?
So I think this is the biggest problem, right? Whenever a player goes through a little bit of a lean patch, you end up having an India test series to follow at home. And then that player will inevitably score 100 or 200. And one has seen this with Dhawan. And I'm not taking away any credit from Dhawan by any means. But I think what's going to happen with Rahul is if you give him a little bit of an extended leash into the India series, the pitches are suited towards India batting well. And I think Rahul will make runs. And that's going to cause another dilemma. Now, the alternative, Shaw, etc., they've not impressed me that much. So it's a very tough question to ask. I think the only thing I want to say is that Rahul, while we think of him as somebody who's new, I think you mentioned 36 test matches or so. I don't think that's a short amount. 36 test matches is probably you've been around for over 3 years. So I think the selectors will have to take a call at some point of time.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think with the kind of talent and the bench strength India has at the moment, it's tough to keep giving somebody a leash. But I'm 100% with you. I grapple a lot with do you back somebody and help them find form, or, sort of the way England has done with some of their top order batsmen, or do you, cut the cord and say now's the time to find somebody new and let Rahul be a specialist ODI player? Speaking of averages, we've talked about a man with an average of below 35 to a man with an average with an average that has just dropped below 50 at 49.87, and that's our number 3, Cheteshwar Pujara. Cheteshwar Pujara batted 4 times in this series and made a grand cumulative total of 60 runs. That's 3 more runs only than Ishant made in his one innings. Thought, should we be upset? Should we be worried? Or is a man with his record allowed off series?
I think a man with his record is allowed a series like this. I think it was just an off series for him. I think knowing Pujara, he would be very upset with himself because this was an opportunity for him to again come out there and really pile on the runs. So I think he's probably hurting about not having scored in this series. But I think a guy of his class at number 3, it's absolutely phenomenal. I think right from our days, we've always seen Dravid at number 3. And for us to not feel that void is a huge, huge thing. I'm not saying giving him an extended leash, but I would say this is just a one-off series. He'll be back very soon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think he's completely earned it, and I think let's just hope he gets this behind him. Okay, I'm going to jump to number 4. Obviously, we won't spend too much time because the skipper himself is not likely to be dropped. But 76 and 51 in each match, followed by 0 and 9, also one in each match. Not the most consistent series, but again, maybe this is just like the bar has been set so high for Virat Kohli. I think against a more aggressive bowling lineup that could have undone our lower order, having Pujara and Kohli both not perform at their best is worrying, right? So how did you feel? Did you get a chance to watch Kohli bat? Did you feel like there was a lack of fluidity or there was fatigue? Or was it just, hey, let's be clear, he scored 250s and that's pretty good?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch him because, like you mentioned earlier in the show, the timings are a bit messed up for me. I watched some highlights. I don't think it's a problem, man. I think 250s in 4 innings is pretty consistent. I think the problem is we're just used to seeing 100. A lot of us are expecting, Kohli's going to go to West Indies and score a double 100. So I think there's just an expectation management. And I was discussing this with somebody as well, right? Just yesterday, actually, that Kohli is now the captain, and I think he has a lot of other things as well on his mind. I think even team selection, we're going to talk about the lower order later, but you mentioned if Pujara and Kohli got out, I mean, that's why Rahane and Vihari are there, right? So I think Kohli's no issue with the fluidity. I think he's playing well. He may not be getting the big hundreds that we are used to, but I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think spot on. Good analysis. Let's jump to talk about numbers 5, 6, and 7, who for now seem to be, or at least 5 and 6 seem to be pretty solid. Rahane at 5, Vihari at 6, Rishabh Pant at 7. So let's start with Rahane. DJ and I talked a little on last week's show. As vice captain, we needed him to have a big series. And you couldn't help but feel really happy for him when he scored that century in the first match. But he ended the series as second highest run scorer with 271 runs from his 4 innings and only dismissed 3 times. So at an average of over 90. I mean, is this the comeback series that Rahane needed?
Yeah, how badly did he need this, right? I mean, as a vice captain, you've got people questioning your position. I think the key thing is that you've got Vihari, who's looking great and who can easily bat at number 5. And B, you've got Rohit Sharma sitting out, who I don't think they consider an opener in Test match cricket. They do consider him a number 5 or a 6. And so for Rahane to come out and really apply himself and do well was extremely crucial here, because I'm not even talking about outside the 15 or the squad that went to West Indies. Within the squad itself, there are 2 guys who can bat at that position. Outside the squad, there are again many guys waiting to come in. So I think it was much needed. And like I said, Rahane is the kind of guy who you're happy when he does well.
Absolutely. And for me, you mentioned it already, but Hanuma Vihari at 6, almost a no-brainer. We loved what we saw in Australia. Let's not forget, he opened the batting there and had to fend off the barrage of bouncers. He's not an opening batsman, so even his 20s and 30s there need to get a lot of credit. But 289 in his 4 innings, including that glorious century. And when he scored it, you just saw how happy the entire team management and the team was. Kohli and every other player was standing on the balcony. Huge applause. He just that moment, right? Raises his arms or jumps and fist bumps, takes off the helmet, kisses the badge. It's just a phenomenal moment to see a newish player to the scene get that first Test century, because it's still something magical about it, right?
Yeah, and we know he had a great domestic record. He did everything for India in the Australia series. He opened when he had to, copped a few blows. It was incredible. I think to me he's a real team player. Seeing him get his first century was great. Did he actually? He was the highest scorer for India, right, in the series?
Highest scorer in the series for India, and in total 289 runs. Yeah.
Yeah. So now the question for you is, they're going to drop him for Pandya, aren't they, in the India?
I was just going to cut to that. Like, what happens? Like, what happens when Hardik Pandya is back in the scene?
Jesus, it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's great to have choice, but how do you drop Vihari? He's the future middle order for India. Personally, in 3 years, I see him batting at number 5 just after Kohli. And I'm saying that because I think Rahane will do well. Rahane is a good test batsman, but you're seriously going to drop Vihari for Pandya, aren't you?
No, so wait, hold on. Let's talk about that, right? Because there's a few different ways this could play out. I think the first is there's a school of thought or a few people out there who think Pandya has been struggling a lot with injuries lately. He is an absolutely phenomenal ODI and T20 player. There's a thought that says, hey, keep him away from test matches for a little longer, get him to work on fitness, get him to work on that shoulder, and continue to groom him as a limited over specialist. It may not be what he wants, but it may be an approach the board takes. I don't know. Any reactions to that? Do you think that's likely or possible even?
I don't think that's likely because I think as an individual, Pandya is so crucial to the whole India cricket setup. Pandya will have his own ambitions. How many times we've heard that no matter how much T20 and ODI you play, the ultimate goal, your dream as a child was to put on the whites and play test cricket for India. So Pandya is not going to let go. Unfortunately or fortunately, he just brings a great balance to the side. So it is a dilemma. It is a challenge. In India, I'm also not sure how to read this. I haven't watched a test match in India for a while. But the batting does not seem to need further strengthening. When you play two spinners, I think you've got a little bit of an advantage in a home series. So is there a need for Pandya? I'm also not 100% sure. But does he bring a balance to the side? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, and you're 100% right, but you could also argue that in India, Vihari giving you that third spin option may be more valuable than Pandya giving you an extra seam option, right? So the issue may come when we play away and you want a fifth bowling option who can seam it, and Vihari only spins. It's worth noting in the West Indies series, because honestly they didn't bat for very long in any of the particular innings, the fifth bowling option wasn't needed except for one over in the second innings of the final test. But the day will come when another team decides to bat all day and the four bowlers just can't keep doing it, and so you need that fifth option. So let's talk about number 7, and we'll come back to Pandya. But number 7 was Rishabh Pant. Definitely felt like a little bit of a weak link this time, right? So he batted 3 times, made 58 runs in totality, just didn't look great out there. As you think about, he has a couple centuries abroad, and it definitely seems like they're grooming him. But is there any room there? Like, does a Pandya play at 7? Remember, Saha batted at 8 once, a few times below Pandya. So how do you see that shaking out? Do you think Pant is fighting for that 7 spot and is going to keep it?
I personally don't think he's fighting right now. I think it's his, but I have to say I was disappointed this series. In fact, on Saturday, I think Saturday night my time, I was excited the whole day because Pant was going to come out to bat with Vihari. I had built it up in my head. You know this, I messaged you. I had got hashtags ready for when Pant hits his century. And then he comes out on the first ball, he just misses the line completely, gets bowled, and my whole kind of evening was ruined. So it's very frustrating. I'm starting to understand what DJ means. I don't think he needs to be dropped right now, but yes, it is very frustrating to watch this guy.
So do you think he can bat somewhere else? Can he bat further up the order? Because that frees up room, right? If you're saying somebody like a Rahul doesn't belong, do you move somebody, like DJ's been saying this in the limited over setup for a while, but do you move somebody like a Pant up the order and then that frees up room for both Vihari and Pandya below, or how do you think about that?
I don't think Pant can open in test match cricket. I think when you go overseas to Australia and England, I think it's a whole different ball game on day one, overcast conditions, new ball, swinging. I don't think Pant has the technical ability to kind of deal with that. And you often compare with Sehwag, but you were the one who pointed out Sehwag was a lot more consistent. Sehwag's hand-eye coordination was great. And Sehwag often got us off to starts. I think that the challenge is when you play overseas test cricket, you're so used to getting out the openers out early. You're just trying to build a little bit of stability. You've got these young guys who are technically very good. I don't think you want to go back to that world where you're 0 for 1 quite often.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think the other thing that works in his favor, I guess, in this case is that as a wicketkeeper, the captain and the selectors will be hard-pressed to say, hey, go keep potentially all day for 80, 90, 100 overs and then go out and open the batting, right? So him playing below lower down gives him a little bit of breathing room. All right, lots to talk about, lots to unpack. I don't think we've solved India's test batting conundrum. It'll be fascinating to see what happens when Hardik Pandya comes back. We're going to double-click on each of the bowlers and what we expect from them, but we will take a quick break and be right back.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM podcast. It's been a really fun week. Also, just a reminder, if you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. One thing that we are trying to do as much of as possible, and we want to keep doing this, is if you hear something that you really enjoy, take a screenshot of it and tag us on whatever social media platform you prefer, and we'll try and repost that. If you want to keep your listening light and funny this week, check out shows like Cyrus Says, Golgappa, and the Empowering series. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus talks to hosts of another IVM show, Football Shootball, Gaurav Sapre, Kartik Iyer, and Sivram Padmanabhan. Tune in to listen to some fun conversation about sports, advertising, and Bollywood. On Golgappa, Trupti is joined by cinematographer Milind Zog, who shares rip-tickling stories from his shoots. And on the Empowering series, Zarina is joined by comedian Suresh Menon. They talk about his early days in comedy, his chemistry with Jose, and how he started Khan Masti. If politics and policy is what's going to really get you going this week, then check out The Scene and the Unseen with Amit Verma. He's joined by Roshan Kishore, data and political economy editor at Hindustan Times. They talk about data journalism. On our Kannada podcast, Saleh Harhate, Dr. H.S. Sudhira joins Pawan Srinath to discuss mapping technologies, GPS tracking, and its implications in Bengaluru. If you want to hear more in the branding or business space, then you should listen to Paisa Vaisa. Anupam talks to Gaurav Rastogi, CEO and founder of Kuvera, about behavioral aspects of investing. On the Pragati podcast, which is normally a fairly political show, this time Pawan talks to Deepak Shenoy. Deepak is the founder and CEO of Capital Mind and one of the foremost experts on the Indian stock market. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by the brand advocacy head at Diageo, Khushbu Binani. And on Simplified, Chuck and Shrikhet talk to the founder of Cume Wealth, Satyan Kothari. Satyan's a really fun guy to talk to, and he's got a lot of insights in this space. If you didn't get enough of Gaurav, Karthik, and Siva on Cyrus Says, then check them out talking on Football Shootball, where they discuss the Juventus versus Napoli game and the transfer deadline drama. But with that, let's get you on with the show.
And we're back. So, Varun, we talked a lot about all the batsmen. We dug deep into most of the batting lineup. Generally, I'd say a pretty good time when you're able to win by such comprehensive margins, despite Pujara failing and Kohli kind of only half performing. Let's talk a little bit about the bowlers. So DJ and I talked this a little on last week's show, but Ravindra Jadeja got selected ahead of Ravi Ashwin. Ravi Ashwin is the fastest bowler ever across all nations to 300 test wickets, and he can't make it for his side. So obviously, it still feels like it was a solid choice. Jadeja with the ball picked up 6 wickets across the 2 test matches. And with the bat, he was pretty solid as well, getting 75 runs. So do you think it was the right call? Is he the right number 8 for us?
It's tough because Ashwin is also a batsman, right? I mean, test match cricket, and a pretty solid bat. So I was surprised by this. I don't know if now Ashwin is a bits and pieces cricketer and Jadeja is the full-time spinner for India.
I'm going to talk a little more about Ashwin at the end, so don't criticize him too much because you know why.
But I don't know. I feel like it could have gone either way. I'm okay. To be honest, I wasn't that opinionated on this. I was surprised, but I think Jaddu totally deserves his spot in the 11. He's a great spinner. He bats well. So it was just surprising to me, but I wasn't upset about it.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think we'll go back to India. We'll probably play 2 spinners. Ashwin and Jadeja will play in tandem, and it works out. But it's amazing that Jadeja is your first choice spinner. And I'm a big fan of him, don't get me wrong. But in a situation where you only play one, I mean, kudos to him for fighting for that spot. And I just hope it's not politics and a little bit of the favoritism that is giving him that first slot. All right, come down to our 3 quicks, but we'll start with our man, Ishant Sharma. He had a highest score before the series of, I think, 32. He came in a couple times, batted exceptionally well. He made 19 in the first match, but stayed there with Vihari for a while. And then he made his first ever 50 in a test match, making 57 in the second match. So his average that was slightly below 8 runs, and that's single digit 8, is now at 8.46. So let's talk quickly about Ishant the batsman. I mean, we've seen Wokes do it. You and I have been talking about, like, holy shit, imagine, pardon my French, but imagine having Wokes at number 8 and we're stuck with 3 number 11s. But he sort of came good, right? He backed Vihari when he needed to.
Yeah, he really did. I think the thing about Sharma, and you've summarized it well, is I feel like he wants to get out there and bat. I feel like, just before he was going out, he was sitting with Kohli. He was definitely discussing batting with Kohli. He looks confident. He looks like he's, composed. When he goes out there, he kind of gives the non-striker, who's usually a batsman, a full-time batsman, a little bit of the confidence that guy, I am going to be able to play this. I'm going to block it. And not only that, I'm going to make some runs. And that's exactly what you saw this time. So I think we really should value Ishant Sharma and this team. He's been batting really well. I think recently I saw an article which said he's become the most successful Indian pacer outside Asia, and he's overtaken Kapil Dev to achieve that record. I think it's 157 test wickets outside of Asia. That's phenomenal, man. And to come out there with this confidence in batting, it's really something I haven't seen in Indian test cricket before.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, he's now almost 100 tests sold. He's got almost 300 test wickets. He's a one format player for India, and I think we have to value him. I think what's fascinating is I just said, oh, Ishant's got a couple years left. He's already 35, 36. And then I looked it up and it was like, hey, this guy's 31. But he made his test debut at age 18. So he's been on the scene a long time. And I think the sort of maturity and the mature way of batting is the only way to put it, has come with time, and it was fantastic to see him. But not to write off his bowling performance as well. He was pretty solid with the ball, picked up a 5 for second highest wicket taker with 11. Shami had a pretty good outing with the ball as well, picking up 9 wickets. I'm not going to spend too much time on talking about him because I do want to spend some time talking about a man who 12 test matches ago was ranked 85 in the world in test bowler. 12 test matches later, he's ranked number 3 as test bowler. Varun, given that you sent me the stat, any guesses as to who that may be?
Yeah, Jasprit Bumrah, man. Jazzy B. I think as people who enjoy watching cricket, we are really lucky to have Bumrah on the scene. I think as Indian cricket fans, we are even luckier that our batsmen are not facing Bumrah. It's just fantastic what he does. He swings the ball both ways. He's got pace. It's just fantastic. It's mind-blowing, actually. I've not seen this kind of thing for India before.
Yeah, it was just fabulous. The only thing I was actually upset about is that it's not easier to find access to highlights. Like the England Cricket Board does an amazing job posting highlights all over social media. So the entire world, even those who didn't watch the match, are watching Archer's bouncers and some of his wickets. I mean, that Bumrah's hat-trick especially should be captured that way. I want to talk to you really quickly. Actually, sorry, the point of that was just to say, hey, if anybody from BCCI's social media team listens to Edges and Sledges, let's start please posting some clips online, because we'd really appreciate that. But I want to talk to you about the hat-trick really quickly. Did you get a chance to watch it, either live or the highlights more likely?
Yeah, I saw the highlights. I think you sent me a link where I could see that. It was great. And I think it was really fun that on the third wicket, Bumrah actually didn't appeal, and Kohli was the one who said, we have to go up. And Bumrah kind of credits the hat-trick to Kohli, because without that review, it wouldn't have happened. But the other thing I just wanted to say is, I mean, as Bumrah was bowling, apparently you could hear Kohli in the slip saying, what a bowler, man. Like, it's phenomenal, right? I mean, imagine your captain and the best batsman in the world standing in the slips just praising you throughout. It's got to do wonders for your confidence.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. When he gets that wicket, he spreads his arm out. He's just, like DJ said it the other day, but he says, like, this is me, guys. I'm here to stay, and I'm going to be the best bowler in the world one day. But I do think the hat-trick was an amazing moment, because it almost shows you how much he puts his team first. Like, you're on the verge of getting a test match hat-trick. Just go. Most players would just say, just go for the review, just in case there's a 1% chance. And he looked at it and he told his captain not to go for it. So pretty amazing how he puts his team first. Really exciting. We're just thrilled to have a guy like Boomrah around. I've said this before, but in a day where I can't sit and watch 8 hours of test cricket, I will prioritize watching our bowling now, which as an Indian fan, I never thought I'd say. It always used to be, go do everything you need to while we're bowling and then come watch the batting. And now I want to watch us bowling, because just watching Boomrah is a sight for sore eyes. So, amazing test win. Just to update folks, the cricket with India never really ends for a long period of time. So we're about 11 days away from the first T20 against South Africa. There are going to be 3 T20s against South Africa, followed by 3 tests. There are a lot of T20s. There's actually not too many ODIs coming up, but lots of T20s in prep for next year's World Cup, and lots of test matches as part of the Test Championship. So I want to talk really quickly about the championship point standing. Where we stand right now is that India is currently in the lead with 120 points, having won both their matches, and we'll talk a little bit more about how. New Zealand and Sri Lanka have 60 points each, and then Australia and England, having each won one match out of the 3 they've played so far, are at 32. West Indies yet to score on the board, and the other 3 sides, South Africa, Bangladesh, Pakistan, have not yet played. So, Varun, there's been a lot of debate about this test kind of scoring standpoint. India walking away with 120 points from 2 matches, and Australia and England fighting so hard, are still sitting on 32. Do you think it makes sense? Do you feel like it's fair? Have you spent any time going into it, or is it just me with my math and stats brain that's spending time on this?
Actually, you were the one who was explaining it to me. Do you want to just go into a little bit of detail and explain it, that I can give my view as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the ICC has set up the points, and just to be clear, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think any system would have been perfect the first time around, but I get it.
Better than Duckworth-Lewis, right?
Yeah, of course. There's actually Duckworth-Lewis has evolved. Apparently there's a third name there that nobody calls it. I'm trying to look it up as we speak. It's called Duckworth Lewis Stern. The S in DLS is for a guy named Stern, but poor guy never got any credit. Anyway, I digress. Basically, the way it's set up is there's 120 points available for a series. Okay? So if you win all your matches in a series, you will get 120 points. Now, if you're playing a 2-match series, that means you get 60 points each. If you're playing a 3-match, it's 40 points each. And if you're playing a 5-match series, you only get 24 points for a win. So what's happened is in England at the Ashes, England and Australia have each won 1 match out of 5. So they got 24 points for that, plus 8 points for a draw. Whereas India won 1 match out of 2 and they got 60. Now you could argue, hold on, they're playing a smaller series against a worse team like West Indies. It feels very convenient. The reason they've set it up this way is because the ICC is going to regulate the number of series that are being played during the World Test Championship, and that's why they've allocated points based on the number of series. So, Varun, now that I've explained that, thoughts? Do you think it's fair that India's sitting on 120 while Ben Stokes pulling off that magical innings has his team still staying on 32?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair because the rules are defined for both for both teams playing in a particular series. I think New Zealand and Sri Lanka are also playing as well, and like you said, there were 120 points up for grab. Both of them won 1 match each, lost 1 match each in that series, and so both of them are sitting pretty on 60 points. So actually, New Zealand and Sri Lanka, having played only 2 games, are both ahead of Australia and England, who have played 3 each. I think, like you said, it's not perfect. I kind of understand the system now. You explained it to me a little bit. What I'm just a little bit concerned about is the number of matches per series, and this is probably us getting a little bit technical, but if the West Indies were to play England and the boards decide to play a 3-match series out of which 1 is a draw, essentially England now has a shot at getting only 80 points, not 40 points for every win rather than 60 points for every win. So I'm not sure how to view that. The same thing will happen in home games, in away games. Are you playing more away? Are you playing more at home? Are you playing more against Bangladesh or Afghanistan? Are you playing less matches? So it's like, if I was to think about it, let's say Bangladesh was playing any of these top sides, you just have to work that much harder to get the 120 points out of the series, as opposed to, let's say, working, assume there's 2 matches in the Bangladesh series, you can get 120 in 2 games, versus 4 matches, you need to just work that much harder.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. I think, like I said, it's not a flawless system, but I totally understand why it's been set up the way it has. I think we'll look back in a couple of years. And what I do, among all the flaws, what I do appreciate is that the ICC does tend to find a way to, adjust as they go. For example, this new concussion substitute rule has already been used twice now, with Jermaine Blackwood coming in. And so I think they'll adjust as they go. So hopefully it makes sense. I do want to mention one stat that, again, you shared with me, but Kohli has now won his record 28th test match. That is more than any skipper prior to him for India, which makes him the most successful Indian test match captain. What is your reaction to that, Varun?
I think it's pretty good. I think you got to give credit where it's due. 28 games, and I'm trying to look for the stat, but in much fewer games than some of our other captains. A win-loss ratio of 2.8. Azhar, who I thought was a good captain, his win-loss ratio was only 1. So to be so far ahead in such fewer games is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, again, one of the things he said is, he said this, but he said the letter C next to my name is just a letter. Our results are that of our team, right? And he says he basically says this all the time, but despite being, an arrogant kind of character on the field, off the field, he always says, these are not my results. These are the team's results, and I'm only as good as the team. And so he gives a ton of credit to all his players, and I really appreciate seeing that in a leader. So,
there was a picture that went around that said Kohli was reading a book called Detox Your Ego. You think he's finished?
I saw that.
You think he's finished the book? That's why this whole captaincy is just a C at the end of your name, etc. I think we've probably finished the book.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to who gave him that book, because what's also interesting is that Amazon India has now sold out of that book within like a couple of days of that picture going viral. If that book is sold out. So whoever wrote that book and the publishers must be pretty thrilled. It just shows you the power that guy has, right? Like, and this is you and me chatting as marketers, but you put anything in Kohli's hands and it'll sell. So, but that aside,
it did look, the image, and we can probably share that on social media as well. The image did look like he was pretty much just reading the foreword or the first page. He hadn't got through much of the book.
I don't think you can tell that from the image. Let's give him some credit. Maybe he read it, but he's being a good guy. And I think, I would honestly am really curious right after the coaching a coach appointment saga. He decided to read that book. So who knows? Maybe it was something that Mike Hesson or somebody gave to him and said, hey, even though I didn't get the job, here's something that you may enjoy reading. So anyway, enough about that. Really quickly, we're a little over time, but I want to pivot to talking about the Ashes. So the fourth test kicks off at Old Trafford tomorrow at the time of us recording this. Varun, each side has announced a couple of subtle things. The first is England has announced really two changes. Chris Woakes is out, and Craig Overton has come in. So that's for the number 8 slot, which is interesting. And then the second is they have not changed the batsman, but they have announced publicly that Joe Denley is going to go up and open the batting with Rory Burns, giving Jason Roy the ability to play at 4. Which hopefully allows him to spend more time batting with Joe Root and maybe settle in a little. But I know you thought that was the right move, right?
Yeah, in fact, firstly, before we get into that, what does Craig Overton do? I'm assuming he's a pace bowler. Is he a batsman as well? Do you know?
He's a pace bowler. I think he was one of those lightning quick kind of pace bowlers. So he's fast, but I don't know enough about him. I know he's an all-rounder as well, so he can bat. I'm just trying to pull up his first-class numbers. So with the ball, he's taken 279 first-class wickets, average of 25 odd, and then he averages about 21 with the bat. So he's definitely a bowling all-rounder at best.
So if he's that lightning fast pace, that's going to be interesting with Archer and him both coming down. That should be fun. But yeah, okay, coming back to the Roy point, I'm personally excited. Why? Because I think Roy is a talent. I think Roy is like your typical Warner or Viru in Test match cricket. I think he can make an impact, but sometimes opening and against, I think in England against a solid bowling lineup like Australia, I think sometimes if you start getting out early, it can hamper your confidence a little bit. I think it may have been too early to shift him down because I don't know what signal you're sending to him. But the fact that you've openly come out and said that he's going to bat at 4 means you do see some value. I think once the ball gets a little bit older in Test match cricket, Jason Roy can be destructive. So I'm very happy that he's still part of the squad. He's in the playing 11. Worried a little bit about the signal it sends to him that to drop him down the order, but I personally think it's the right move.
Yeah, interesting. And then let's talk a little about the Australian side really quickly. So they've persisted with Marcus Harris at the top of the order. They've persisted with Matthew Wade. And now they have not announced their 12 yet, but it really looks like, just to mention, Usman Khawaja has been axed. But I do want to say, their choice, it seems like, is for that one pace bowler slot between Mitchell Starc and Peter Siddle. I think Peter Siddle is probably arguably the slightly more consistent bowler. You can pretty much guarantee that he's going to hit that line and length that you want him to. But Mitchell Starc just has a dynamism to him, right? So who would you go with if you're the Aussie selectors?
I just read somewhere that Mitchell Starc was bowling really well in the nets. I think it's time to unleash him. If you don't do it now, when will you do it? I really like him. I think he's a great bowler. I think he will add a different dimension to the Australian bowling attack, especially being a left armer. And it just comes back to the same point I mentioned. If in match, the 5-match series is tied 1-1, you've got 2 games to go. If you don't unleash him now, when are you going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So incredibly poised Ashes, 5-match series tied 1-1, as Varun just said, with 2 matches to go. So it's going to be a cracker of a game at Old Trafford. We will talk more about it in our next episode when the match should be done. But I want to wrap up, as I mentioned earlier on, with a quick IPL note. So, Varun, DJ and I chatted this briefly last week, but the rumors are continuing to circulate, so it feels like it's a little more of a certainty than it was last week. But it looks like both Ajinkya Rahane from the Rajasthan Royals and our man Ravi Ashwin from Kings 11 Punjab are going to make their way to the Delhi Capitals over the next 6 months to be able to play with them for IPL 2020. So let me just quickly ask you, I heard DJ's point of view, but let me quickly ask you for your reaction first on Ajinkya Rahane.
I think Delhi's got a bit confused. I'm not sure if they know that the ICC Test Championship is a international nations tournament and not a IPL cities tournament. I mean, I can't understand.
Can you imagine if there was a city franchise test? Oh, wait a minute. That's called the Ranji Trophy.
The Canteen 11. I just can't understand it. It's baffling to me. I'm a huge Delhi supporter. I don't know what your view is on this, but it's absolutely baffling to me. You have enough openers in the team. Your top order is solid. You've got enough young talent you want to groom. Why have you brought Rahane into this side? Where is he going to bat? It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know. Do you have an answer?
I don't have a good answer for you, but I have a question for you. What do you think Rahane's average is in the IPL over 11 years of playing? Call it up to 14, 15 games per year.
33?
You looked that up, right?
No, I swear I didn't. I swear I did.
What? That's no way this happened.
Wait, what is this average?
32.93.
What?
It's 32.93. You were off by
Dude, are you kidding me?
0.07. So that's incredible. I'm blown away. Anyway, but he averaged 32.75 in 2019. He had a couple bad years before that, but in 15 and 16, he averaged 49 and 43. So where's all the hate coming
The hate is coming from, it doesn't fit into your plans. Where is...
But it definitely doesn't fit in with Steve Smith and Stuart Binney in Rajasthan either, right? So you can understand that.
No, I get it, but it just what are you going to do? Are you going to bat Rahane at 5, Vihari at 6? This is not...
It's a fabulous... I sent you this message, but the Delhi Capitals could play almost an all-Indian side.
Yeah.
Right? So you could open with Shaw and Dhawan, you could play Iyer, Pant, Rahane, Vihari. You got a perfect Indian top 6. Anyway, that's a side note. But it sounds like you are anti the decision to bring in Rahane.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I think if it allows you to let Shaw, Pant, and Iyer all kind of play a really aggressive role with Dhawan and Rahane kind of playing the anchor roles, then maybe it allows you to have one extra bowling option from the overseas players. Or anyway, I'm trying to rationalize. I don't think it's a great decision, but I can see why they're deciding.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
And then let's talk about the other one, Ashwin to come in as off spinner. He obviously captained Kings 11 Punjab last year. He led them through Munkat Gate. Do you think he belongs and will fit in this side?
So this is I have a little bit different view. I actually woke up really angry when I saw this, but now I'm a little more calm. I think it's not a bad decision, actually. I think what's going to happen is Ashwin's experience will help Iyer as captain, and who clearly is being groomed for leadership roles. So I think from that perspective, it's good. As I think about the Indian spinners that Delhi has, Ashwin is, clearly stands out from everyone else we have, right? From Akshar Patel, from Amit Mishra. So now that I think about it a little bit, I think this actually might be a pretty decent move.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think DJ highlighted that as well. I think a little bit of experience on the field, along with obviously being a world-class spinner. So that could be an interesting move. I said it last week, is that I think Amit Mishra may be coming near the end of his career, even though we've been saying that for many, many years now. But if that's the case, then it makes sense to bring in a national level spinner. Don't forget, we just traded Sherfane Rutherford for Mayank Markanday as well. So we have another quality leg spinner in the side. So that may be your 2 spinning option, given that we don't have Shahbaz Nadeem playing for us anymore. So enough Delhi Capitals talk and IPL talk. It's been a whirlwind of a series in the West Indies. Fabulous stuff. When we talk to you next week, India would not have played any more cricket. So we'll be talking mostly about the Ashes. But then on September 15th, the T20s against South Africa kick off right again. So thank you for those of you guys who tune in every week, who've been patient as this one releases a little bit later than normal. But we wanted to make sure we could talk about the West Indies series as a whole. For anybody who's a new listener, we hope you enjoyed listening to us. We always love to hear from you guys. If you like listening to our show, we're at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a rating or a review. It helps us grow, helps spread the word. And we will be back, some combination of Varun, DJ, and I, hopefully all 3 of us, will be back next week to talk about this in more detail. But we will see you back then. Thanks so much.
Look, up in the internet. It's a meme. No, it's a cat video. No, it's the Geek Fruit Podcast.
That's right. We interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, The Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar, and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.
Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Careers in the New podcast series presented by Accenture. I'm your host, Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay. In this podcast series, we'll get you the latest and greatest in the world of technology that's shaping the future of business as we know it. We're talking intelligent platforms, cloud, AI, blockchain, extended reality, and a whole lot more. Every fortnight on Wednesdays, we'll have for you a hot topic with expert speakers from Accenture talking about top trends in the space, how these are changing the world, and creating growth across industries. And importantly, we'll tell you how you can learn more, build your skills and expertise to grow and stay relevant in your career. Episodes out on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcast from.